Moving over to the Major League Baseball world, it is prime off-season time, and we've got some news that we're going to run through here. We've got four pieces of news, but let's start things off with, I would say, the biggest piece of news that we've gotten so far this offseason. I believe it was Sunday. The Mets and the Rangers made a pretty decent-sized trade, a one-for-one swap of players. The Rangers are sending second baseman Marcus Semien over to New York in exchange for outfielder Brandon Nimmo. The Mets are also sending $5 million to offset some of the salary differences in that trade. But Braden, what do you make of this deal for each side?
Yeah, it's nice to see the stove start to get a little bit lukewarm. I wouldn't call it hot yet, but we're starting to simmer a little bit. This trade really came out of nowhere for me. And when I saw the trade notification, I figured Texas was getting a little bit more back than just Brandon Nimmo. But then I looked into it more, and it made sense why this was a one-for-one swap. Marcus Semien's last 2 years at the plate have been pretty ugly. Across those 2 seasons, he's got a total slash line of 234, 307, 379 for a 686 OPS. Does still have a decent bit of power. He's got 38 home runs and 136 RBIs over that time frame, but has also struck out 198 times. You throw in the fact that he's already 35 years old, has 3 years left under contract at $26 million for each of the next 2 years and $20 million in 2028. It's not a great contract. You look at his StatCast page as well. The hitting numbers aren't great. The chase rate and the whiff rate, the walk rate, the strikeout rate, those are all fine. But you look at the xWOBA, expected batting average, expected slugging percentage, the hard hit rate, those leave a lot to be desired. A lot of his value now is just on the defensive side. He was in the 92nd percentile in outs above average last year. So still a gold glove caliber defender, which will help for the Mets. But as a hitter, I think his glory days are behind him. As for Nimmo, he's definitely the better hitter of the two right now. He's posted at least a 106 OPS plus every year since 2017. Coming off year, he had a 115 OPS plus. The StatCast page is almost like mid on every single thing. He's like 47th to like 55th percentile in about 2/3 of the categories on both the hitting and the defensive side of the ball. He's making $19.25 million each year through 2030, which will be his age 37 season. The Mets covering some of that money does help Texas a little bit. But overall, this felt like a swap of contracts that each team wanted to get rid of. So grading these trades, I'm going to give New York a C and Texas a C plus.
Yeah, and to some extent, I like it for both sides, but I feel like it doesn't really move the needle in either direction. The Mets are clearly not happy with the development of Luis Angel Acuna. They felt they needed to add a second baseman, and so they did. Semien is going to be a great top of the order bat for New York, but he took a step back last year offensively. And granted, he really underperformed some of his expected stats. His BABIP, which batting average on balls in play, for those that don't know, was just 208, which is extremely low for anybody. I think a fresh start in New York will be good for him. For Texas, you let go of Adolis Garcia. Nimmo doesn't necessarily have the power that Garcia has, but I think he's a much better overall hitter that will probably hit somewhere towards the top of the order. I saw something that had him projected to hit leadoff, which would be great for them. The one thing worth mentioning, though, is that going into last year, he was always an above average to very good defender in the outfield. Last year, that was not the case. He was actually below average, according to outs above average. Um, but I think that might just be an outlier season. I think with both, I think with where both these guys are in their respective careers and the needs of each side, it's a decent move. But again, I don't really think it's going to move the needle for either team. So I think your grades of roughly a C, C plus for each side is completely fair. Up next, we had I almost said NFC, a American League conference swap. We had the Angels sending outfielder Taylor Ward over to Baltimore in exchange for starting pitcher Grayson Rodriguez. Another one-for-one swap. Braden, what do you make of this one?
Starting with the Angels side of things, Grayson Rodriguez has been awesome when he's been on the field, but the issue is that he hasn't been on the field all that much. Over his young MLB career so far, he's got a 4.11 ERA, a 129 WHIP. The FIP is good though; it's a 3.8, and he's got 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. His Statcast page from 2024 was very good for a young player. Was above average in the vast majority of categories. Had an 82nd percentile whiff rate, a 75 percentile strikeout rate, and a 72% 72nd percentile chase rate. So a lot of metrics you'd like there from a young pitcher. Had a 91st percentile off-speed run value as well. Great breaking pitches from him. He's still just 26 years old. He's under team control since 2029. And that makes you wonder, why did Baltimore give up on him? Well, he hasn't pitched in a game at any level since July 31st of 2024, and in total, he's missed about 2 seasons worth of games over the last 3 years due to lat strains and elbow and shoulder issues. He had elbow surgery in August. He's supposed to be back for spring training, but at the same time, that's very finicky issue, and who knows if something else is going to flare up. For Taylor Ward, for the Orioles, he's coming off a career season in the power department, but did sacrifice a little bit in the on-base department. Had a slash line of 228, 317, 475 last year, a career-high 36 home runs and 103 RBIs, and had his highest WAR since 2022, which I believe he was an all-star that year. His Statcast page is kind of all over the board. Had a great chase rate, not a great strikeout rate, and a lot of the hard hit numbers that you would hope to see be in like the 70th percentile aren't there, which makes me think that the 36 home runs he hit last year is probably going to go back down to about 20, especially considering the left field fence at Camden Yards is pretty far back. He's going to be a free agent after 2026 as well. So you're essentially trading a guy who you expected to be an ace when you drafted him for a rental. Grading these trades overall, I'm going to give Baltimore a C-. I don't hate the idea of giving up on Rodriguez. I personally would not have, but at the same time, I do understand the move. However, Taylor Ward for 1 year isn't a great return, especially when you already have Colton Cowser, Tyler O'Neill, and Dylan Beavers in the outfield. I presume they're going to want to play all 3 of those guys still. So you're going to have to find at-bats for one of them at DH, and that cuts into Samuel Basalo's playing time. Maybe there's another move to be made, but as of right now, it doesn't make a ton of sense as far as the return goes. For the Angels, I'll give them a B+. You turn 1 year of Taylor Ward into the upside Rodriguez is possessing. It's worth it for their rebuild, but at the same time, Rodriguez isn't a no-risk prospect by any means.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. This is a Baltimore team that needed an outfielder very badly. In my opinion, I don't know how comfortable they feel with a lot of the youth that they have there. Taylor Ward hit for a lot of power last year and a very low average, as you mentioned. That's not really his game historically. He's usually a guy that hits for a relatively high average, somewhere around 260, 270, and somewhere around 25 home runs. But that kind of flipped last year. If this is the same Taylor Ward as last year, I think that works better for Baltimore because they don't really need him to be a guy that gets on base a ton. They need him to be a guy that hits in the middle of the lineup and drives in the guys from the top of the order that are on base already. And that's exactly what he did last year. But on the flip side, I'm with you. I don't like trading Grayson Rodriguez. I get he's got some health concerns, but at least personally, I was all in on him going into last year. He had surgery to remove some bone spurs from his elbow in August, and it sounds like that was a recurring issue, and so maybe that'll keep him on the field more, fingers crossed. I think once he's fully healthy, though, he's going to immediately be the ace of this Angels rotation. He's got a career expected ERA in the high threes. You mentioned the 3.8 FIP. A very good strikeout to walk ratio, above 3, which is fantastic. He made significant strides from 2023 to 2024, and the talent is definitely still there, I think. I like the trade for both sides as far as fit, but I'm with you. I think the Angels get the better return, getting a guy who has a lot of potential left for a 1 year outfielder rental that you don't really have a big need for at this point in Taylor Ward. So I like it more for LA. We had an extension in the, I keep wanting to say NFC, in the American League West. Josh Naylor and the Seattle Mariners agreed on a 5-year, $92.5 million extension. Naylor was acquired at the trade deadline back in late July, and he was pretty damn good for the Mariners. So, Braden, what do you make of this?
Yeah, when this news originally broke, there wasn't a dollar figure in the original reporting. So I saw that Naylor signed an extension, and my ballpark was going to be, oh, it's about 5 years, 110, maybe 120 million. To get him locked up for 5 years at just $92 million is a great extension for the Seattle front office. Naylor was great last year. Across the entire season, had a 295, 353, 462 triple slash, a 128 OPS plus, and had a 3.1 WAR according to both Baseball Reference and Fangraphs. With Seattle, he was just as good, if not even a little bit better. 299, 341, and a 490 slugging percentage, a 138 OPS plus overall. Excuse me. Um, the StatCast profile is basically the same as it's been the last couple of years as well. The bat speed and chase rate were a little bit worse, but that's not really a huge concern for me. So I think he's shown enough in the consistency department to warrant an extension. He'll be the 8th highest paid first baseman in MLB next year. He'll make $1.5 million less than Christian Walker, who signed his deal last offseason with the Houston Astros. To me, I'm going to give Seattle an A minus for this extension.
Yeah, I'm right up there with you. I'd even go as far as saying an A. I think this was a no brainer for Seattle. He was excellent after he got traded. He was great before he got traded, but especially great after. He hit 340 in the playoffs across 51 plate appearances, hit 299 in Seattle over 54 regular season games. The pitching has always been there for the Mariners. They have one of the best young rotations in baseball. They also drafted Cade Anderson out of LSU with the third overall pick in last year's draft. Hitting has always been the main concern for the Mariners, and this is a guy that you can lock in somewhere between 3 and 5 in that batting order for the next handful of years. So credit to Seattle for getting it done and getting it done for less than 20 million a year over the next 5 years. I think that's a slam dunk for the Mariners. And then the last piece of news that just went down this morning, actually, as we're recording this, Sonny Gray traded from the Seattle. My gosh, I'm all over the place today. From the St. Louis Cardinals, there we go, to the Boston Red Sox. They sent Sonny Gray to Boston in exchange for starting pitcher Richard Fitz and pitching prospect Brandon Clark, who at the time was the number 5 Red Sox prospect according to MLB Pipeline, as well as cash considerations. I think I saw it was $20 million to offset some of Sonny Gray's contract. So, Braden, what do you make of this?
I love the steal for Boston. Sonny Gray hasn't been as good as the last couple of years in terms of the raw numbers. His ERA in 2023 was 2.79. 2024 was 3.84. Last year was 4.28. The strikeout numbers have slightly bumped up from 2023. He's got an extra 18 strikeouts compared to those years. But overall, the ERA has dipped a little bit. The StatCast profile is very similar. He's still 81st percentile in chase rate, 79th percentile in strikeout rate, 93rd percentile in walk rate. So what you're getting out of Sonny Gray is excellent command, and I think that's something Boston really needs with a rotation that includes guys like Brian Bayo, who have historically struggled with that a little bit. Richard Fitz, on the other side of things, has some upside, hasn't done much yet in a 15-game sample size. He's kind of more of a flyer, I think, for St. Louis than anything else. Last year made 11 appearances, had an ERA of 5, a 1.31 whip, and 40 strikeouts. The big piece of the return is, as you mentioned, Brandon Clark. Last year crossed low A Salem and high A Greenville, had a 4.03 ERA in 14 starts, has a fastball in the upper 90s, has a plus slider. He comes into St. Louis as their number 7 prospect, so there is a lot to like there. But overall, I'm going to give Boston an A minus for this trade. Crochet, Gray, Bayo, and then 2 of Tanner Houck, Cutter Crawford, and Kyle Harrison is a very good starting rotation. Sonny Gray is only going to cost him $11 million this year and has a $30 million option or a $5 million buyout for 2027. For St. Louis, I'm going to give him a B minus. This is a solid return when you know you're not going to be competitive. But, I mean, you could have made this decision last year at the trade deadline and gotten more for Sonny Gray. They clearly should have moved on, knowing that they weren't going to make the postseason. So I got to dock him a little bit for that, and that's why I'll go with a B minus.
Yeah, and I like it even more for Boston knowing that, they're getting a lot more help in terms of the contract. I didn't know it was going to be 20 million that they were getting as far as negating some of Sonny Gray's contract. So I love it for Boston. You're getting a guy who's a proven number 2 or number 3 rotation arm, which is exactly what you need. Trading your number 5 prospect for a 36-year-old pitcher doesn't sound great, but I really don't mind it. You mentioned the stats across low A and high A. In high A specifically, and I believe it was only like 25 innings, but Clark had a 5.08 ERA, and Richard Fitz had a 5 ERA in the majors last year. But again, that was a small sample size too. But I don't think you're really losing out on a whole lot if you're Boston there. And then as far as St. Louis goes, they kind of suck. So there's really no point in keeping Gray. And I'm with you. I think it would have made more sense to just do it at the deadline last year when you know you're not going to go anywhere and get more for him then. But I do think it's worth taking a swing on two guys who are still relatively unproven, but do have upside. I think it's pretty unlikely either guy turns into anything crazy good, but you don't have to keep a Sonny Gray around for a team that's presumably entering a rebuild year. So I think it's a good move for both sides. But again, I'm with you. I think Boston comes out on top on this, especially considering the cash that they're getting in return as well.